Hello, YouTube. Just wanted to make a video to talk a little bit about the recent kind of debate about the shape of the Earth, whether or not it's a oblate spheroid shooting through space. Um, this is the first video I've ever made, so bear with me. This video is meant to kind of help along those who are tuned in or on the precipice. For many of us, this idea that our Earth is a plane has resonated. Chances are, if you are watching this, then you are at least curious. That being said, no insults in the comment section, guys. Um, so I just wanted to walk through some basic deductive inductive reasoning that helped me kind of open my mind concerning the shape of the Earth. I also wanted to throw in here that I, like everyone else that entertains this notion, thought it was ludicrous at first glance. Um, a lot of these voices amongst the crowd, or what I would like to refer to as a movement, are not dim-witted, but rather beyond the curve. Some of them. So first thing, if the Earth is a ball or something close to an oblate spheroid, as Neil deGrasse Tyson said, um, we then then it has to have a circumference, which means it has to have a measurable curve. Um, and don't take my word for this, guys. Do your own research. Don't take my word for it. Second, if a boat appears over the horizon and a magnification apparatus is used, a camera, telescope, binoculars, and is brought back into our field of view, then it did not disappear over the curve of the Earth. Second thing, we have never seen the other side of the moon, and all the craters allegedly caused by meteorites have hit seemingly at a perfect 180 degrees to the center of the moon. Also, they would have had to pass through the Earth. There are no valleys or troughs that I can see. Just doesn't really make sense. Let's see, the sun and the moon are, it's only coincidence that they appear to be the same size, but they're actually millions of miles away from each other. I just don't. I'm not buying that. Um, let's see. Do some research on how a GoPro lens affects light. Fisheye lens bends light to produce curvature of all things, and not just the Earth from high altitudes. Um, I'm a painter. I'm pretty well versed with Photoshop. I'm not as good as Matt Boylan. I am certainly not convinced that the photos that have been labeled as Earth are real photos. I've seen the copy and pasting of the clouds. I've seen the foreground of the moon in the famous Earth rising photo. I mean, it looks like the foreground's like a mile long. Why don't we have a 24-hour feed of Earth from space from one of the thousands of satellites orbiting the Earth? Or at least more photos than the blue marble that is used as a default representation of where we live. Why are the multiple photos of our Earth? Why are there multiple photos of the Earth released by NASA, and obviously much different from the rest? I've seen planets and stars through cameras that have an incredible zoom capability, and I've seen nothing like the CGI representations of celestial bodies that we are given. There are so many things compiled together that have made me question what we know as Earth, what we know of as Earth. These are just a few points that I hope have inspired some critical thinking rather than just parroting Wikipedia. I also wanted to run through some what I like to call Matt Boylan rhetoric that might inspire some more critical thinking. Consider that hundreds of years ago, before we had the means to actually map the world, that this topic of whether or not the Earth was a spinning, hurling, shooting ball versus a plain stationary world had to be at the peak of contest amongst everyone. Scientists, philosophers, religions, I mean, the list goes on. For hundreds of years, most people had adopted the ball theory as a means to understand the world we live in. And they were quite certain. I mean, we adopted the globe long before we had airplanes or any means to map. the world. Now, imagine that one of these critically acclaimed groups of study finally had the means to test their theory, whether that be through sailing the seas or flying some of the first few generations of airplanes. They find that their theory is wrong. Maybe they find more land that had never been explored. Maybe they find some sort of retaining wall. Maybe they find they can't go to space. I mean, can you imagine what kind of impact that would have on humanity if everyone knew that we are in some kind of Truman like show enclosure, or that we had or that we live on some kind of infinite plane, or even worse, the Bible's description of the world is correct? Can you imagine what kind of impact this would have on humanity? Of course, there would be reason to keep this from us. I mean, I don't really need to go into that much more. I mean, think about how much of an impact this would have on our worldview. Humans are naturally very curious, and we seek to answer fundamental questions concerning our existence. Who, what, when, where, why. If the Earth is not a spinning ball suspended in space, well, that essentially hits the reset button on our worldview altogether now, doesn't it? Worldview. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the profound implications that this has on humanity if the Earth is indeed a fixed plane, which I have many reasons to believe it is. Governments collude to perpetuate and indoctrinate humanity into believing this falsehood concerning our home. Fake astronomy, fake space programs, hired celebrity pseudoscientists. My dissertation is that aliens do exist. A sanctum. Everything that has been stamped as science approved comes into question. Understand how dangerous the word science can be if it's understood to be true, whether or not you believe in it. Global cooling, holes in the ozone layer, global warming, no, climate change is said to be science approved. I'm so tired of hearing this whole Alex Jones narrative. Donald Trump against the globalists. What a joke. I don't believe any of these theatrics anymore. Money has corrupted every facet of our system. The narrative has been fixed. Our world is a theater, and you're either a producer, an actor, or you're in the audience, like most of us. Back to the drawing board, folks. What is the true nature of our reality? Who, what, when, where, and why? We can never let others answer these questions for us. Create your own reality. Think for yourself. For those of you that are where I am now, you realize that this is not going to go away. This is way bigger than Neil deGrasse Tyson taking his shirt off and dropping a mic to prove gravity. We need to stand together in purpose. We are not convinced by the Disney cartoon depictions of our world, and we want answers. We are tired of being fed lie upon lie to make us subservient, obedient, submissive members of society, only to serve the more privileged. We are not mindless consumers and capable of critical thinking. Well, at least some of us. The first ever International Flat Earth Conference is being held in North Carolina on November 9th through 10th. That's pretty awesome. This is not going away, people. This is an awakening. People are tired of the bullshit. And this is the icing on the cake, at least for me. We know the Earth is not a spinning ball. My hope is that we gain critical mass and boycott Hollywood, banks, mainstream news, celebrities, politicians, pseudoscientists, and shill truthers. We live in a world where there are many obstacles around truth. I've been doing research on nature of the nature of the world for a few months now, and it's somewhat and if someone before that would have introduced me to the idea that there are paid trolls, people who are paid to be keyboard warriors to discredit or distract people from going any further down the rabbit hole. I would have said that's nuts. Some of the more popular faces within the movement tell you, when one truth and two lies, the best lies are half truths. So beware. Although we may differ on our worldviews, we can almost certainly agree that we are on a stationary, fixed plane, as far as we can tell. I can't take Hollywood seriously anymore. I find so much propaganda in a majority of the films that I see now. It's like, the veil's been lifted, and I just kind of see through everything now. If you guys have seen the movie that just recently came out called Arrival, about aliens, there is so much propaganda in that movie that it's so blatant to me that I feel like we're on the we're being kind of prepped for a soon to come deception as I see it. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of talk about some of this stuff and some common sense stuff that should inspire some critical thinking. And thanks for watching. And remember, it's okay to question your reality. See you guys.